Hey folks, it's Joe with Three Peaks Navigation. Posting a video today that's a follow-up to a expert council segment I did this week for the Survival Podcast. And on there I talked about different tools I use when I'm trying to get more information about a property I'm interested but I can't actually drive to. You know, if you're looking at property, especially remote property that's hours or days away, there's some different tools we can use to try to learn more about it and decide if it's something that is worth a visit. And so I've got a listing here up in Northwest Washington in outside of Port Angeles. And of course, you know, the first thing I'm going to do is take a look at the map and hit the satellite image and just, you know, generally get a feel for the area. I'm going to zoom out. And the next thing I want to do is take a look at the GIS and see if the jurisdiction that the property is in has a GIS or a Geographic Information System site. So GIS is a collection of software that folks use to create and edit map data. And most jurisdictions, you know, whether it's a county, city, parish, will have some sort of publicly facing GIS. So what I need to do first is I know in Washington we have counties, and so I could, of course, you know, look up the address and find out what county it's in. The interesting thing also is that Redfin at least lists the county for most properties. And also, we'll take a look at this, the APN or assessor parcel number, that will come in handy. So next thing I'm going to do is actually open up a new browser window and search for Clallam County GIS, which will take me to their portal. And again, this is going to look a little bit different depending on the jurisdiction, but most all, I believe, you know, would have some sort of public-facing GIS. And in this case, Clallam County's built a bunch of focused maps for specific items, zoning. They've got a good, probably general multi-purpose map, but we're going to take a look at the tax parcel map, because parcels are the information we really want to take a look at. So the next thing we need to do is actually find our parcel on the map. And so I'm actually going to enter 594 Camp Hayden. So the address is up here in the listing. So I'm going to enter Camp Hayden. And if I take a look, this looks at Camp Hayden Road and Dern Watcher. This looks pretty, you know, this looks like the property I'm trying to find. The other thing I could do if I wanted to validate would be, before we looked at this APN parcel number, 831354820 at the end. Here's 4820. If I click on it, 8315. You know, so I've positively validated this is actually the property I'm looking for. So you'll note, actually, when I click on the parcel, I get a pop-up with a bunch of different information. This is what I was looking for. So I now can see the assessor treasurer information about the property. Here's the tax records. Sometimes knowing whether or not the taxes have been paid is interesting. Excuse me, how the property's evaluated. And then down here further, not a lot of sales history, but we can see, you know, over time there's been a couple sales. So again, interesting information to know if the property has changed hands. The other piece of information I wanted to point out is actually not all jurisdictions will have permit information, but here we've got some permit information with a strange URL. That's not too surprising. So there's the link to the assessor record. There's not really any permit history other than, you know, probably when it was subdivided and then an address was assigned. But again, if, you know, this was a parcel with a house or structure on it, you might see other permits that would be interesting. Last thing I will point out is, you know, most GIS sites like this will have a base map gallery where you can pick more, you know, different base maps. So in this case, we've got multiple aerial photos or ortho photos we can view. Let's try the 2023. And you can see I can go back in time, all the way to 2006. So I can get, an idea of what the properties looked like historically, what's happened. There's also different base maps that I can use if I want something that looks a little bit more like a street map. The other item that I would always look for is the layer list. And so in this case, I can turn on and off different layers that you see on the map. Township and range. This will vary widely between different jurisdictions. And as we saw, there was a general web map when we were first looking at Clallam County that might have more layers than this. So definitely take a look at that. But I've got multiple years of aerial photos again. Not too much additional information here. It could be that there's really accurate road or street information, hydrography like rivers or lakes, lots of different layers to find. Maybe they have hazard information like flooding or landslides or something like that. So always something to take a look at. The other resource I wanted to show is called CalTopo, and this is just an online web viewer. It's got a lot of functionality. There's also some additional paid or pro functionality that I don't pay for. But in this case, I'm going to put in 594. The address, and we'll see if it reconciles. And it actually did. So here's the that same area off Camp Hayden Road and Underwatcher Road. A couple of different layers that I like to use in CalTopo. These in the top are different base maps. These are the old scanned USGS topographic maps. They're not updated as often as other map layers anymore, but again, maybe some historical information you're interested in. The Forest Service maps just cover the Forest Service property and neighboring areas. So there might not be any for your property you're interested in. TF Outdoors is more of a outdoor recreation focused map. The shaded relief is something I wanted to point out, and shaded relief data shows terrain. You can see, obviously we've got kind of a quasi 3D view of the terrain popping out at you. But depending on where you are in the US, you might have really accurate, high precision terrain data that's collected by LiDAR, which is a laser instrument. And this is definitely an area where you could see that high accuracy terrain data. So the property we're looking at is right here. Not related at all to this, but these, north-south features are definitely some sort of glacial remnant, which is a little bit interesting. As I zoom in, you can see, obviously we've got the streams and Salt Creek that cuts through here. You can also see it's really obvious where the road is, and actually there's a bridge right there. And even in areas, if I zoom in a little bit, where you're just looking at logging roads, and if I turn the aerial photo on, it might not even be obvious there's a road there. If I look at the shaded relief, you can see the road beds. They pop up really well. So lots of interesting information you can derive from that shaded relief layer. And then also, the county GIS site that we looked at has more accurate and up-to-date and more different versions of the aerial photos, but this might be, your only option. I also wanted to pop out or note a couple of map overlays here. The first is the contours and the map builder overlay. So if I'm using the aerial photos, I can turn these other overlays on top of them to get a little bit more context. There's also a public lands layer that I like. This shows state and federal owned lands in the area. So all of this blue is state owned. If I pan to the south where we get close to Olympic National Park, you've got the green that's Olympic National Forest, and then the pink that's the park. And you'll notice if I turn this off and then turn it back on, you see that shading difference. I'll zoom back into the property I'm interested in. There's also a fire history and fire activity layer. So again, if you're in an area that has, potential forest fire risk, that will show up. I know there's been some fires in the park. So here's a 2003 fire perimeter there within the park. There's also a cell coverage layer. And so this will actually show an estimate of coverage. And if you click down here on the legend, you'll actually see it's divided up by carrier. So it does, again, if you're looking at a remote site, that gives you some good context. There's also the sun exposure layer. And you'll note these purple areas are a lack of exposure, and the yellow is exposure. And so this is, of course, north latitude. The sun is coming from the south, especially this time of year in the winter. And so these, shaded areas have less sun exposure. You'll note you can actually change it by month and even by day or by time of day. So again, if you're, taking a look at a property, that's important to know. And that is actually it. The last thing I wanted to show for CalTopo, and this kind of, ties all the workflows together, is you can actually create geographic information and share it with other programs. So let's go back and try to find the parcel we're looking at. And if I go back and look at the outline of the parcel, what I want to do is actually create a polygon that generally represents where the parcel is. So you can see a little bit of change in the vegetation there, and then it doesn't go all the way to the road, and then there's that parcel on the other side. So I'm going to click add. I'm going to create a polygon, and then I'm going to come up, and I don't usually try to be too precise, but it's nice to know generally where the parcel is. And what I can now do is I can export that as a couple of different formats. GPX would export to Gaia, or other GPS outdoor softwares. GeoJSON is kind of a general GIS format, but I'm going to export it to KML because I want to actually open it now in Google Earth. So moving over to Google Earth, I'm going to import from my downloads folder. Let's go back really quick and see where that actually. Now I can drop that KML into Google Earth, and it'll take me directly to the parcel that I created. And I know a lot of folks use Google Earth to look at parcels, and I really do like the imagery and the historic imagery and the ability to change your terrain or view your terrain, change the angle that you're looking at the property. But I don't like that Google doesn't do a great job of showing roads, and it doesn't show a lot of the other layers that we looked at between CalTopo and the county GIS site. So by creating the outline of your parcel, or maybe the parcel you're interested in as well as the neighboring parcels, you can get an idea of how it looks and where the boundaries are in Google Earth. So that's the actually the end of the workflow. I just wanted to share and provide a little bit more information for folks that were interested. As always, leave leave questions or comments down in the comments of the video. There's different things that you use, different tools you use for this kind of workflow. I'd be interested to learn more about it. Thanks a lot, folks, and have a good day.